right, hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive, your daily dose of UPSC Current Affairs.
Yeah.
All right, so today is February 19th, 2025, and we're going to kick off part one. If any of this sounds familiar, great. You get a little bonus revision in. So today we are diving into some really fascinating stuff. But before we do that, if you're enjoying the deep dive, please like and subscribe. So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah, let's go.
First up, we've got sovereign green bonds.
SGBs?
Yeah, exactly, SGBs. So India has been using these to fund, all these new eco-friendly projects, but are investors actually buying into it? What's the deal with these?
Well, you see, the idea is to kind of attract investors, right? Both domestically, internationally, who are looking for, those ethical and sustainable investment opportunities.
Right.
And with SGBs, it's kind of like a promise, right? To repay with interest like any other government bond.
Yeah, I gotcha.
But the thing is, the funds raised through these SGBs are specifically used for projects with, very clear environmental benefits.
Yeah.
So think removable energy, pollution control, sustainable transportation.
So it's not just any random project can just slap a green label on themselves. There's an actual framework, right?
Absolutely. The Indian government's got a very rigorous process based on guidelines from the International Capital Market Association, which means there's certain criteria that projects need to meet. And there's this whole reporting system to ensure transparency and accountability. They have a dedicated committee to evaluate these proposals to see, which projects should actually receive this funding.
That makes sense. So it sounds like they're really trying to, make this a legitimate thing, a real option for investors who really want to, put their money where their values are, so to speak. But is it enough to make India like a leader in the green finance space globally?
Well, I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but there's a lot of factors, investor confidence, transparency, the impact of the projects themselves.
So it's a wait and see kind of thing.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. All right. So moving on, this next one, this might sound a little familiar to you. So the NAKSHA program in Madhya Pradesh, so we've talked about this before. That super accurate land record system using those aerial surveys and ground verification.
Yes. Fascinating initiative, right?
Yeah. So if they implement this effectively, it could really transform land management in India, right?
Imagine, a system so precise, it basically eliminates land disputes.
Yeah.
That's the goal here.
Right. But think about it. If we want to roll this out to the whole country, India is huge.
Of course.
And diverse. Different infrastructure, different levels of technology adoption. Can this really work on a national level?
That's the question, right? It's a big concern. Scaling up any tech-driven project across India is no joke. You need that robust digital infrastructure. You need trained personnel.
Oh, yeah.
A system that can adapt, right, to the different regions. But also, the big one, data security.
Yeah, of course.
You're dealing with sensitive land ownership information. So how do you ensure that the system is protected from cyber threats and all that?
Right. It's easy to see the good and not think about the bad. So is this just too ambitious, or do you think they can actually make it happen?
Well, the pilot project in Madhya Pradesh, that's going to be the test. If they show success there, then maybe. But we need to be cautious. We got to address those challenges head on.
All right, makes sense. Okay, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the Sowparnika River. This one's in Karnataka. And for those of you who love geography and mythology, this river is the one for you.
It's a fascinating one.
Yeah.
It's considered sacred, in Hindu mythology. Legends say that Garuda, the mythical bird, Vishnu's companion, performed penance on its banks.
Wow.
And the geography is really interesting, too. Near Maravanthi Beach, the river actually runs parallel to the sea. The Arabian Sea, there's just this little strip of land between them.
That's amazing.
It's a sight to see, very popular for photographers.
Wow. But like a lot of the rivers in India, it's facing pollution, right? What kind of implications does that have? Not just for the environment, but also for the, the cultural and religious significance of the river.
Well, it's a sad reality that a lot of India's sacred rivers are struggling with pollution, industrial waste, agricultural runoff, untreated sewage.
It's such a problem.
In this case, not only does it threaten the ecosystem, it also impacts the religious practices and those cultural traditions that are tied to the river.
It's a much bigger problem than just cleaning up the water.
Right.
Right? It's recognizing that cultural and spiritual value.
Absolutely.
So what are some steps that are being taken to try to fix this?
Well, there's a growing movement, revive and rejuvenate India's rivers. For example, the Namami Gange program.
Right.
That's for the Ganges. These initiatives, they combine pollution control measures, afforestation, and public awareness campaigns.
It's going to take a lot of effort, right?
Oh, yeah. It's a long and complex process.
All right, now let's talk tech. We all know Meta, right? Facebook's parent company.
Yes.
They're doing this massive project called Waterworth, where they're laying this 50,000-kilometer undersea cable network that's longer than the circumference of the Earth.
It's huge.
It is.
Cables reaching depths of 7,000 meters, you know?
Wow.
But it's not just about how big it is, it's the technology. These cables are self-healing.
What does that mean?
So they can reroute traffic if there's damage.
Oh, wow.
Think earthquakes, ship anchors, sabotage. They thought of everything.
So it's like a super resilient, internet backbone.
Exactly. Connecting continents, potentially boosting internet access to areas that don't have it.
Which is great. But is there any downside to that? Is it a problem that one company controls such a vast network?
That's the question a lot of people are asking. Some argue that this gives Meta way too much influence. Concerns about data privacy, censorship,
right?
Monopolization of this internet infrastructure.
Right. So the technology is really impressive.
Of course.
But we need to be careful, right? We got to think about the downside.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's talk about APITA now.
Okay.
That's the Agricultural and Processed Food Products Export Development Authority.
Yeah, they've been in the news lately.
Yeah, they've been facilitating India's first commercial shipment of pomegranates to Australia.
That's right.
But they do more than just fruits, right?
Oh, yeah, much broader.
Okay.
They're all about promoting brand India in the global food market.
Okay.
Setting quality standards, providing insights, helping connect Indian farmers with international buyers.
So they're like a one-stop shop.
You could say that.
For Indian agricultural exporters. Okay.
Help them navigate the market, compete globally.
But what are some of the challenges that they face, like trying to break into new markets like Australia?
Well, first of all, it's competitive out there.
Yeah.
Meeting those international standards, those regulations,
right.
It can be a big hurdle.
Okay.
Then, the logistics of transporting goods, especially perishable ones.
Yeah, and keeping them fresh.
Exactly. Maintaining that quality over long distances.
Right. And we can't forget about those cultural differences, right? Like what people like to eat.
Yeah. Yeah, consumer preferences, understanding those nuances, tailoring the products and the marketing.
It's complicated.
Oh, yeah, but APITA plays a vital role in supporting them.
Okay. All right, now for a story that's going to get the nature enthusiasts excited. The Perambiculum Tiger Reserve in Kerala. They just added 15 new species to their list.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. What makes this place so special?
It's a biodiversity hotspot.
Okay.
A wide range of habitats. Dense forests, grasslands, rivers, reservoirs.
Yeah.
Supports so many species. Tigers, elephants, primates.
Wow.
Birds, reptiles, amphibians, you name it.
Amazing. But what about the people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The reserve is also home to 4 indigenous tribes.
Wow.
They've lived in harmony with nature for centuries.
That's amazing.
Their knowledge and sustainable practices are so important for conservation.
It's a good reminder, right, that it's not just about protecting wildlife. It's about that whole ecosystem.
It's all connected.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, now let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about international relations and defense cooperation. So, Indian and Japanese forces are getting ready for this exercise. It's called Exercise Dharma Guardian. It's a joint military exercise.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It's meant to simulate all these real-world scenarios, urban warfare, counterterrorism, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So these joint exercises, we see them more and more these days. Why is that?
Well, countries want to, strengthen partnerships, enhance interoperability. For India and Japan, this is really important given, everything that's happening in the Indo-Pacific.
Right.
It's a message of cooperation.
Right.
Shows a unified front, especially when it comes to maritime security and, counterterrorism.
So it's more than just training.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a message.
You could say it's strategic.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're picking up where we left off with Part 2 of our UPSC Current Affairs analysis for February 19th, 2025.
Okay, so before the break, we were talking about Exercise Dharma Guardian, and how important those joint military exercises are. But let's get into the specifics a little bit. What kind of message do you think an exercise like this sends, to other countries in the region, especially the ones who maybe India has some strategic, differences with?
You're right. Military exercises are often as much about, political signaling as they are about just training.
Right.
So in this case, India and Japan, right, working together, it sends a very clear message, right? Of cooperation, a unified front, especially when you think about maritime security and, fighting terrorism.
Yeah.
They're trying to show their commitment to a free and open Indo-Pacific, which might not make everyone happy, especially those with different goals in the region.
Right. Yeah, it's like strategic chess. Every move is calculated, right, to influence the whole game.
Exactly.
So speaking of strategic moves, let's talk about the Javelin Anti-Tank Missile. India's thinking about adding this to their arsenal, just on a, tactical level. This seems like a huge upgrade for India. What are the, the geopolitical implications of this deal.
It's definitely a big move. A lot of people are paying attention to this. The Javelin, it's a very sophisticated weapon. It's portable. It's effective. So for India, getting the Javelin, it doesn't just strengthen their defense, especially, along the northern borders,
Right.
but it also brings them closer to the U.S., militarily speaking.
Okay.
And that's where the geopolitics get really interesting.
Yeah.
Some people see this as India getting closer to the U.S., maybe even moving away from Russia,
Oh, interesting.
who have been, their main arms supplier for a long time.
Right, so it's not just about the weapon itself.
No.
It's about what it means for India's relationships.
Yeah, it's a balancing act.
For sure. Okay, now for something completely different. A reminder that, nature has its own plans. We mentioned before the earthquake swarm in Greece, especially around Santorini.
Right.
Earthquake swarms, they happen. But what makes this one, stand out? Why are we talking about it?
Well, Santorini, it's in a very seismically active region.
Yeah.
A lot of volcanoes there.
Right.
Last big eruption thousands of years ago really changed the island.
Wow.
So this swarm, it's got people worried. Could this mean more volcanic activity?
Right.
Scientists are keeping a close eye on it, but it just shows you, right?
Yeah.
We live on plan that's constantly changing.
It's a good reminder. Puts things in perspective, for sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of perspective, let's go back to that scientific discovery we talked about earlier. The ovoid cells in the brain. Remind us again why this is such a big deal, for understanding memory and how our brains work.
Absolutely. So these ovoid cells, they're in the hippocampus, the part of the brain that deals with memory.
Okay.
They're really important for recognizing objects. When you see something new, they basically activate and help create a memory of that thing.
So they're like the brain's little photographers.
Yeah, like that. They capture those first impressions.
That's so cool.
And this could be huge for, treating neurological disorders. Imagine treatments that target these cells, enhance memory, prevent memory loss, maybe even reverse damage from things like Alzheimer's.
Wow.
We're still early, but the research is exciting.
It really is. Okay, let's get back to economics and sustainability for a minute. We talked about sovereign green bonds before.
Yes.
And how they could help fund eco-friendly projects in India. But, let's be a little critical. Are there any downsides, risks with this approach?
Well, with any financial instrument, you always have to look at both sides.
Right.
One risk with SGBs is greenwashing.
Okay, what's that?
Basically, projects that call themselves green, even though they might not really be.
Oh, I see.
This could make investors lose trust and hurt the whole SGB market.
So it's not just about getting the money.
No.
It's about making sure it's used for the right things.
Exactly. Real environmental benefits.
So how do we prevent that?
Transparency, accountability.
Okay.
We need ways to independently verify these projects, make sure they're actually green. The government also needs to be open about how they're using the money.
Yeah.
Show the impact of the projects.
Trust but verify. Right.
Exactly. Investors need to do their homework, not just jump on the green trend.
All right. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back for the final part of our deep dive. And we are back for the final part of our deep dive. Fellow UPSC aspirants, we're in the final stretch now. This is part 3 of our February 19th, 2025 Current Affairs update.
Yeah, let's wrap these last few topics up. Make sure you've got all the info you need for those exams.
Exactly. Now, right before the break, we were getting into the downsides of sovereign green bonds, that whole greenwashing thing. But let's be optimistic for a second. What are the good things about these SGBs? For India, if this is done right, what could this mean for India, for their economy? And, for the fight against climate change globally.
Okay, so if India gets this SGB framework right, if it's credible, if it's transparent, then it could really attract a lot of investment, domestically and internationally.
Right.
That could be huge. Funding all those important projects, renewable energy, sustainable transportation, you name it.
Yeah.
It could create jobs, boost the economy, help India transition to a low-carbon way of life. And globally, if India succeeds, it could be an example for other developing nations.
So it's not just about the environment then?
No, not at all.
It's about the economics, too.
It's about India becoming a leader.
In green finance.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a win-win if it's done right. All right, let's go back to the NAKSHA program for a minute. We talked about the challenges, trying to, scale this up to the whole country. But what about the benefits? What if it works? How could this change land management in India?
Well, think about it. Accurate land records, transparency, easy access to information.
Okay.
That could change everything. Property transactions would be so much smoother, fewer land disputes, people would have clear ownership rights.
Yes.
Farmers could get loans easier, businesses could, acquire land for projects more efficiently, and the government, they could collect more revenue. Better urban planning.
So many problems solved.
Potentially, yes.
Wow. But let's be real. Implementing something like this across India, it's not going to be easy, right?
Of course not. The biggest challenge, making sure everyone can use it. especially people in rural areas, marginalized communities, people who might not have tech skills or legal help.
Right.
And then there's data security, privacy, so much sensitive information online. We need to protect that.
So it's not just about the tech.
No.
It's about people.
It's about using technology responsibly.
To make things better for everyone. Okay, last topic for today. Artificial intelligence. AI. It's everywhere now, right? Phones, cars. But how can we use AI to help India?
Well, AI could be a game changer in a lot of sectors. In healthcare, think AI diagnostics. That could improve access to quality care, especially in those rural areas we were talking about.
Right, right.
In agriculture, AI can help farmers get better yields, predict the weather, manage resources better.
Wow.
In education, it can personalize learning, close that gap between urban and rural students.
Okay.
And even in the government, AI can help streamline things, make services better, fight corruption.
So it's like AI can drive progress.
In so many ways, yes.
But what about the risks? Any ethical dilemmas with AI that we need to be aware of?
Oh, for sure. One of the biggest concerns is jobs. As AI gets better, it could automate a lot of jobs away. Then there's bias, and AI systems can learn the wrong things from biased data. And then the big one, who's responsible when AI makes a mistake?
These are all important things to think about.
Absolutely.
Especially as AI becomes, more and more a part of our lives, we need to use it responsibly.
For everyone's benefit.
Right. Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive today. From green finance to earthquake swarms to, the mysteries of the brain. It's been quite a journey.
A lot to cover, for sure. But hopefully everyone feels a little more prepared for those UPSC questions.
Absolutely. Remember, everyone, this is just the start. Keep learning. Keep asking questions. And, stay informed. Don't forget to like and subscribe to The Deep Dive for more insightful analysis of, all things UPSC current affairs. We'll see you next time. Happy studying.